Aloha Jivas, welcome to our reading of Bhagavad Gita as it is by A.C. Bhaktivedanta, Swami, Prabhupad. We are reading chapter 3 called Karma Yoga, and we are starting with text 36. Atha kena prayukto yam papam charati purushaha aniccan api varshneya baladiva niyojitaha. Arjuna said, O descendant of Vrishni, by what is one impelled to sinful acts, even unwillingly, as if engaged by force? Purport. A living entity, as part and parcel of the Supreme, is originally spiritual, pure, and free from all material contaminations. Therefore, by nature, he is not subjected to the sins of the material world. But when he is in contact with the material nature, he acts in many sinful ways without hesitation, and sometimes even against his will. As such, Arjuna's question to Krishna is very sanguine as to the perverted nature of the living entities. Although the living entity sometimes does not want to act in sin, he is still forced to act. Sinful actions are not, however, impelled by the supersoul within, but are due to another cause, as the Lord explains in the next verse. Text 37. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Kamasha Krodha Isha Rajoguna Samudbhavaha Mahashano Mahapapma Vidyana Mehavarinam. The Blessed Lord said, It is lust only, Arjuna, which is born of contact with the material modes of passion and later transformed into wrath, and which is the all-devouring, sinful enemy of this world. Purport. When a living entity comes in contact with the material creation, his eternal love for Krishna is transformed into lust, in association with the mode of passion. Or in other words, the sense of love of God becomes transformed into lust, as milk in contact with sour tamarind is transformed into yogurt. Then again, when lust is unsatisfied, it turns into wrath. Wrath is transformed into illusion, and illusion continues the material existence. Therefore, lust is the greatest enemy of the living entity, and it is lust only which induces the pure living entity to remain entangled in the material world. Wrath is the manifestation of the mode of ignorance. These modes exhibit themselves as wrath and other corollaries. If, therefore, the modes of passion, instead of being degraded into the modes of ignorance, are elevated to the modes of goodness by the prescribed method of living and acting, then one can be saved from the degradation of wrath by spiritual attachment. The Supreme Personality of Godhead expanded himself into many for his ever-increasing spiritual bliss, and the living entities are parts and parcels of this spiritual bliss. They also have partial independence, but by misuse of their independence, when the service attitude is transformed into the propensity for sense enjoyment, they come under the sway of lust. This material creation is created by the Lord to give a facility to the conditioned souls to fulfill these lustful propensities. And when they are completely baffled by prolonged lustful activities, the living entities begin to inquire about their real position. This inquiry is the beginning of the Vedanta Sutras, wherein it is said, Atato Brahma Jigyasa, one should inquire into the Supreme. And the Supreme is defined in Srimad Bhagavatam as Janmadyasya Yato Vyad Etaratascha, or, quote, the origin of everything is the Supreme Brahman, unquote. Therefore, the origin of lust is also in the, oops, I just lost my page, hang on. Therefore, the origin of lust is also in the Supreme. If, therefore, lust is transformed into love for the Supreme, or transformed into Krishna consciousness, or in other words, desiring everything for Krishna, then both lust and wrath can be spiritualized. Hanuman, the great servitor of Lord Ram, engaged his wrath upon his enemies for the satisfaction of the Lord. Therefore, lust and wrath, when they are employed in Krishna consciousness, become our friends instead of our enemies. Do you recall, like, in the moment, or maybe in hindsight, how, like, it really does seem like it's out of our control sometimes? Like, we just sometimes, like, we call it self-sabotage when, like, we know something isn't good for us, isn't healthy for us, but we do it anyway. And it's like, and then it becomes like this vicious cycle, because, like, oh, we hate ourselves for, like, why did I do that? But in that moment, it's like, it's just like that pleasure that we get for that, fleeting moment, that's lust. And it's not just like a sexual type of lust. It's like, lust of the tongue, lust for money, power. And yeah, these are like uncontrollable urges, because it says right here that, like, even this lust, or this desire is in Krishna himself, right? So we are of the same, our soul is of the same pure quality as Krishna himself, but is different. It's not, we are not of the same, like, quantity, of the same magnitude, but we have those same qualities. But because we're not spiritualized, like, our spiritual nature has become covered from lifetimes of conditioning in the material world. And so then that desire, that the quality of desire that is within, even the spiritual world, becomes perverted in the material world as lust for things that are not pure. However, even those things which do bring us pleasure can still become spiritualized when used in service or as an offering to God, to increasing the love of God and the divine couple and love itself. So there was something else I wanted to, yeah, so I mean, it says, it explains that we have this free will, or is it, anyway, but yeah, I mean, that's it is true that God gives us free will, and so we are to act as we please, and however, what is pleasing to Krishna and what is in our best interest is to use our free will to choose to love and devote all of our actions towards Krishna consciousness, towards love of God, and like, the personality of God, of Krishna, is so sweet. It's, we can relate to it because Like, who wants to be in a relationship with someone who is obligated to be nice to us, is like forced to, write us, a birthday card, or take a, just that mood of obligation just kind of sours the whole thing. Whereas if someone just, spontaneously is inspired to be loving towards you, like, that is desirable. And that's how God wants our relationship to be with him. So that's why we have the free will, because eventually, like it says here, we will come to a point when we realize that all of this, lust, that we can experience, all that we can have all the sex we want, we can have all of the tasty food we want, we can have all of the money in the world, but it is not the source of fulfillment, of real peace and lasting eternal happiness. And so that is what people, will eventually come to realize, and then they begin to question. And it's those questions that are so important, when you can start formulating these questions. And those questions, who are you asking a question to? Like, if you have a question, you need answers, right? Where are your answers coming from? But when you begin to formulate questions, like existential types of questions, just be aware for how those answers will come to you when you ask. Even if you question the existence of God himself, right? It's like, you can, if you at least wonder, you can ask the questions and see, what answers you get. That's my experience, so I can vouch for it. But yeah, it's really powerful. And I hope that you also experience the awesome, powerful inspiration that comes from having a two-way relationship with God, when you begin to notice how the answers are coming, and it's just really makes you feel good and validated, like, you're on the right path. So I wish that for you, and I hope you're having an awesome day, and I'll see you next time. Hare Krishna.